As Namibia heads towards the 2024 general elections on November, their campaigns, each with a vision for the nation's future. Tonight, we delve into a comparative analysis of these manifestos and campaign strategies. This isn't just about promises, but about critically assessing how they align with Namibia's urgent needs: economic development, social justice, land reform, and transparent governance. We'll break down how parties aim to tackle unemployment, poverty, and inequality while looking at their use of social media, grassroots mobilization, and digital campaigns. Are these efforts resonating with voters, or are they just political theatrics? I'm Jonas Mbambo, alongside Joyce Rukoro, your sign language interpreter, for this edition of Situation Critical. A very good evening and a warm welcome. Now, joining us for this discussion, we have on my far left, Frederico Links, the research associate at the Institute for Public Policy Research, and on my immediate left, I have Tangeni Matheus, a political science student, here to help us analyze these manifestos and campaign strategies as Namibia's political future takes shape. Very good evening to you, gentlemen, and a warm welcome to Situation Critical.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Much obliged. Yeah, let's start off with the future. Since you are the youth and you are the future, let's start off with you. Let's get your impression around political manifestos, the manifestos that have been launched and the promises that have been made. What is your, just your brief overview, your impression so far as a young Namibian who's also going to be voting for the very first time?
Yes, for the very first time, actually. With regards to the manifestos, many young people, myself included, we have been very interested. We just don't want to vote. We want to see what we vote for, which party suits us. So with most manifestos, I've been very impressed as a student of political science, be it the SWAPO Party Manifesto, the IPC Manifesto, or even the COD Manifesto. They just don't say what they want to do. They tell us and show us how they want to do it, which essentially is good for the Namibian people, because it's not just telling us what you want, you are showing us how you want to achieve that.
Absolutely. Frederico, what has been your impression so far? I mean, this is not your first rodeo, and for many of us, it's not the first time that we're seeing parties campaign, but what has perhaps stood out for you as something different compared to the previous years?
There isn't really. I mean, this was sort of expected. I don't see anything different in these manifestos, to be honest. They're slightly better than the ones in the past. You can see there's been more thought put into them, but they still lack solid evidence groundings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always been the problem. What are these commitments or these promises based on? What evidence is there that speaks to, what is going to be done and how it's going to be done and how much it will cost? Because that's been, up to this point, it's been one of the big drawbacks of our manifestos in past elections is it lacked a costing element where you can actually see, this is how much this thing is going to cost.
Yeah. And
this is where the money is going to come from. Because the money has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely.
And this has always been one of the weaknesses where you can see that, these things are just slapped together. Where you really get to see that there's a lack of an evidence base. Because if you had an evidence base, you would be able to say, this thing is going to cost us this much. Because we want to do so many, and we've worked this out properly. We actually sat down and did the calculations. And that's always been the problem. And for most of them, it's the problem again this time. They produce manifestos because they have to produce manifestos, because it's an election, and the belief is if there's an election, then there has to be a manifesto.
Experts have tipped young African youth as the queen and king makers in elections across the continent. But somehow one gets the feeling that young people don't understand that they're wielding this power. And on top of that, we also have to deal with voter apathy. When you look at some of these manifestos, do you think that they are really in touch with the people of your demographic? Are they really speaking to your challenges and making you say, yes, this guy actually, he knows what he's talking about. He's talking to me and he's also talking about me. And he's also, including us in this whole process. Talk to us about that.
If I look at it from the lenses of my fellow panelist here who said most manifestos, it was things that are to be expected. So political parties telling us what we want to hear, but does it necessarily speak to us as the youth? I wouldn't necessarily say so, because if we look even as far as last year, youth unemployment rate of 38%, which I don't know the figures for this year, but I hate to be a pragmatist or a pessimist, but one would think it went up again. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are initiatives for youth, but not all youth are getting them. It's 5 years ago, the problems youth faced 5 years ago, it's not necessarily the problems they face now, because the problems they faced 5 years ago have been doubled. And if you look at the manifestos of even 5 years ago, it was to curb the issues we as young people faced then. 5 years ago, I was probably 16 years old, and now I'm 21, and not a lot has changed, unfortunately.
But Frederico, what do you make of his thoughts? I mean, they are mainstays in all elections when it comes to manifestos. Mainstays like unemployment, we'll work on it. Youth empowerment.
You hit the same notes every time.
But what do you think is the one issue that has been overlooked by some or maybe all political parties in terms of saying, look, these issues have been here forever, unemployment, socioeconomic issues, but what is that issue that you feel is not getting the attention that it deserves?
I mean, look, all of them are addressing the right things, or they're trying to. I mean, and that's just because we all know, all of us in this country know what the socioeconomic issues are, what the pressing issues are in this country. Youth unemployment, education. And then they, all of them are playing to the youth audience to talk about things like sporting facilities, for instance, and recreational facilities. So they expanded away from it's not just about employment; it's also about these other things. Yeah. And so they're trying to draw the youth in this way. Look, we're not only talking about you having a job, we're also talking about trying to make life where you are more livable. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the message certainly is very much something that is different. The approach is very much one that is a youth-focused approach. And that cuts across the board. Mm-hmm. All of them, they really are speaking to, because, I mean, we all know youth are the largest segment of the population. And so, talking about the future, talking about the things that concern the youth is something to try out, at least to see if the youth will fall for it.
Absolutely.
But that's where, that's where you could then also see, are they actually, hitting the issue on the head? And just talking about employment, what about employment?
Yes.
You look at some of these promises or commitments, and once again, it's just, we're going to create jobs. Some of the figures that have been sort of thrown out there are, one of our independent candidates, the first one that launched the manifesto, said 300,000 jobs immediately. Now that's just overt politicking. That's just saying something to say something. But those are the issues.
Yeah.
There's youth and just talking about youth entrepreneurship, for instance. All of them are talking about that. We're going to have schemes that speak to building up youth entrepreneurs and subsidies and whatever for youth SMEs to tap into and that sort of thing. So I mean, they're trying to seem as if they put some thought into this. But you know, there's so many questions drifting around some of these promises that you just say, I mean, okay, you're just saying this, but the substance of what you're trying to get across is lacking.
Absolutely.
And as soon as you scratch it, you realize that the substance isn't there. So I mean, in that sense, it's not really different. You know, it's the same parties.
Yeah.
Same parties, same tactics, same people in these parties.
Same thing of a different script, same actors.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different election, different year.
Yeah.
But you know, you see them sort of trotting out the same things.
Yeah.
I mean, to a large extent. Of course, yeah. I mean, there's some changes.
Yeah. Well, as far as youth participation is concerned, Tangeni, I would like to come back again to the fact that, you know, the youth in general feel that they are not being made to feel part of the process, but we saw the appointment of very young parliamentarians in the form of Emma Theophilus and others. We also see in the opposition parties of younger parliamentarians. Doesn't this kind of like give you a sense of hope to say like there are at least leaders out there who understand that, you know, perhaps maybe this is where our creativity and innovation stops. We need some fresh blood to come into the club as well. What are your thoughts around that? Seeing young people being appointed to high office.
I liked how you talked about young people. I think a little over 2 or 3 weeks ago, I found out that a classmate of mine is also going to Parliament. She's Feni Tuchavi, 22 this year. And before that, it was Emma Theophilus. She was, before her appointment, I'd like to think she was 25, and Patience Masua.
Yes.
And then you find from the PDM where there is Maximilian and Ina Hengari, LPM, you find Utaramoto. So it's not just one party that is focusing on inclusivity, but rather all of them, which is essentially a very good thing because you are giving the platform to young people. Even now, look at this.
Yeah.
Exactly. So young people are being given a platform, but then I have a lecturer who always likes saying, are young people being put to the table just to fill a vacant spot, or are they being put to the table to participate? Will Tangeni's opinion hold as much weight as Frederico and Jonah's participation? And like he said earlier, all these parties know that young people constitute majority of the Namibian population. So you'll want to give them some sort of chair around the table so they know, no, if my colleague could get in, this party appeals to me, so maybe tomorrow it can be me. So it is a good initiative, hopefully if it's done for the right reasons, and if these young people are being given the platform to participate on the tables where they have been put, they are very capable, and hopefully they are given that chance, yes.
Frederico, what are your thoughts on that? Is it an attempt, the appointment of younger individuals, is it perhaps an attempt to win the young vote, or is it genuine, in your opinion?
It probably is an attempt to. I mean, it's very conspicuous. You know, this inclusion all of a sudden. It's, you know, right now, all of a sudden, people have never heard of are suddenly thrust to the front. What does that look like?
Yeah.
It's very obvious what's happening, I think, to a large extent. You know, and I think at least the door is opening. Look, I don't think it's the youth of a politician that matters. It's the quality of the person. It's the quality of the politician. Now, you can have an elderly politician or a middle-aged politician or a young politician, and they're a quality politician. They're somebody who you know, comes with substance and actually knows what needs to be done, or can put forward viable and credible, you know, solutions to issues. So it's the quality of representation.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so hung up on there have to be women, there have to be youth, there have to be this and that. and really the issue of, all right, so we're pushing these people to the front, but do they really belong there? Are they of a quality that can actually present solutions to Namibian problems? And those are the questions that we, as voters, we need to interrogate. Okay, so we see these young politicians. A few weeks ago, I was doing some training of some journalists, and one of at that point the ruling party list had just come out over the weekend.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people there that people said, who are these people? And my encouragement of the young reporters was, you need to go and find out for the voter who these people are.
Absolutely.
What is their pedigree? What is their political history within this party? And when it comes to somebody who is 22 years old, what is it that drew this person to the notice of the party leadership? Why was this person elevated instead of somebody else who might have
gone through the
who
structures?
might be 3 years older, is actually in the structures and has been an activist on the ground? Why is this person being elevated over that person? What is it about this person? So you need to answer these questions. And the parties need to answer these questions. Why is this person being elevated? And not there are other people in the structures that have been there that are also youth and that aren't getting the same opportunities. What are you doing? So, I mean, there are a lot of questions, and they're not exactly being answered. Why are these? Why all of a sudden is there this appetite for youthful faces at the top? Why now?
Your thoughts on that, and perhaps also just to remember what we spoke about when I interviewed Kapama, and he said the problem with many young people is they don't attend stuff. And he made an example of when you attend public lectures on topics that are crafted around young people in the attempt to attract young people. If you do get the young people that you know are going to be the usual people that you bump into, why? Is politics not, what will it take for young people to take politics seriously?
I think it goes back to the whole thing you talked about, political apathy. There is a reason why young people do not participate anymore. I would like to think the reason is because young people feel excluded. However, over the recent years, many young people are coming to the table. They want to participate, and to go back to what Frederico said, these people, we don't just want them to participate. We want them to participate because they are competent. If you are participating and your participation is not helping where the country wants to go, then your participation is not ideal. So, yes, young people aren't there as much, but for the few that are there, hopefully they make it favorable for the others to come on board. Hopefully even this platform, you can get 2 or 3 or 4 more who will become more interested in politics, because in as much as we want to stay away from politics, politics dictates everything in our daily life. The time you go to work, what you wear, what you drink, everything is politics. So we should try to at least not even participate too much. We should try to know who are our leaders, why are they our leaders, and how are their policies helping us. If their policies are not helping us, are there alternatives? And are these alternatives suitable to the conditions we have today?
Do you think the electorate has evolved over the years in developing a sense of maturity to listen to Frederico Links, who's, let's say, the president of Party A, and Tangeni here is Party B, but because all my life my family has supported Party B, I won't bother listening to you because, hey, who's Frederico Links? But you might be making very valid points in your manifesto. You might be making a lot of sense in your manifesto, but because of the fact that your colors are wrong and you don't associate with the party that I grew up with,
Yes.
I will not even entertain you, and that kind of like defeats the whole purpose of democracy. Do you think we have reached that level of maturity to sit down and say, hey, this guy is really talking sense?
I think we're slowly, it's a gradual process, I think, especially in new societies like ours. It is a gradual process. It takes, you have generations that have a history, a shared history that so there's a large legacy vote block out there, a vote that is because of historical, a vote that was historically formed. So that sort of breaking the hold of such blocks on a society takes generations. I mean, we can see it in our politics. So really the question is, what is the quality of the Namibian voter? That's an interesting question. And my response is always, I mean, you look at the quality of the Namibian politician and you sort of get an idea of the quality of the Namibian voter. That's not a very high quality. Let's just put it that way. So this is where I think we, in some of the work that we do, for instance, at the IPPR, the purpose, the aim is to ultimately create a more informed, more sophisticated voter at some point down the line, because people aren't voting on the issues. If people were voting on the issues, the electoral landscape wouldn't look the way it does. If people were voting on performance, it wouldn't look the way it does. So we are an electorate of a suspect quality, for the most part, I think, and it's reflected in the quality of politicians we elect, which, across the board aren't really of a quality. And I say this because, we see this in that the people who've been there for more than a generation, and this is both in terms of the ruling party and the opposition parties. The failure to come up with really workable solutions to Namibian issues for a population of a handful, a few million, and you're failing to come up with workable solutions for this small society. That says something about your quality as a leader, a representative of the people. So that's where you see quality ultimately in whether people can and do deliver. And on that score, you have to say, if the electorate isn't voting along, that sort of that isn't the standard that is being voted on, then that says something about us as the electorate. We'll get the quality of representation that we ultimately reflect.
What's the conversation around this topic on campus is? I mean, do people of your generation look at the world differently? Do you see beyond party colors, or has that somehow also been inherited from the other generation, and the same debate is ongoing that, well, this party did so much for this country, hence I'm going to stick with it, despite perhaps, a better alternative coming out there, as some people may argue. But talk to us about, the quality of debate on campus, and as far as politics is concerned. Is it more of a thing of partisanship, or more of a thing of like, look, we are all in this together as Namibians. How do we choose the right individuals that will help us develop this country moving forward?
The situation on campus is actually very interesting, very, very much interesting, because there are those who we are all Namibian, let's focus on what works and we vote for that. Then partisanship plays an important role on campus, probably more than the average student would want it to be like, but You find, I think, with regards to what with regard to what Federico said, the quality of the Namibian voter, it's not the best. It reflects the politician, because Namibians vote, most of them vote for allegiance rather than competency. And if young people, the majority of the Namibian electorate, still have these thoughts of voting for allegiance instead of competency, one could only imagine what an older citizen in a town in Ohalusho that was there when the liberation struggle was going on, you can already know, you can think what they'll vote for before they even vote. So the people we are looking at to necessarily save us, I think you call them the king and the queen beans of the electorate, the ones we are looking at, our eyes will be on them, because the situation is very divided, and hopefully in the future we come up with initiatives where young people are there. And I think you briefly spoke about them earlier, where initiatives where, I think 2 weeks ago there was a debate where the candidates that are running for the presidency, they were all there in front of their electorate, and they spoke about their policies, and majority of those people, I would like to say 95% of them, were young people. So it shows that sometimes if we come up with initiatives, young people will be there, and it is these very initiatives that will determine the future of Namibia 30 years from now, 25 years from now, or even 100 years from now.
All right. Frederico Tangeni, we'll quickly take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the money in Manifesto. So get ready for that. You're just tuning in. You're watching Situation Critical. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Situation Critical with Jonas Mbambo, and the topic is all about party manifestos and whether the promises that are being made in these manifestos are realistic. And once these people are elected into office, will they fulfill the promises made in those manifestos? Now, before we went for a break, there's a bit of a wordplay that I did there where I said, let's talk about the money in manifesto. And the question I'm trying to get an answer to, and I think a lot of people want to get an answer to, is like, I'm sure we can all agree that politics has never been fair at all. They say politics is a dirty game, and an old man once said, but when was it ever clean, Jonas? When we look at well-established parties, the SWAPOs and the PDMs, I mean, at some point, financial muscle comes out to flex during campaigns. We have seen very big campaigns being exhibited across the country, artists being invited from South Africa to come perform, obviously to attract the youth as well. But do you think it's fair for the newer guy who's coming in, the independent candidate who's probably just starting out and much more younger party, how much of an influence does money play in determining how many votes you're gonna have in your favor? Because at the end of the day, politics is a numbers game, isn't it?
That's an interesting question in our context, because of this sort of block vote that we have, and this ethnic vote that tends to fall to parties. Do I think it makes an impression? It influences, some of these showy sort of campaign rallies. Do I think it has some influence? I think it does. It probably does influence some people. Mm-hmm. It does create an impression that here's a party that is well-resourced, that because they appear to be well-resourced, they might actually have, as you say, the financial muscle to be able to do right by my community or whoever. But I think a lot of this stuff is not playing right with the electorate. Some of this is too showy, especially in a society like ours, where most people, life is very hard for most Namibians right now. And to have this sort of showiness, I'm wondering if it could backfire. Because people see waste, they see, and they equate the sort of showiness with, some of the things that they perceive to have been going on. This is the sort of showiness that speaks to the corrupt, because the corrupt tends to be showy and, flashy and so forth. And so, you have to wonder whether it's playing well with the electorate. It's probably playing well with the converted. It's playing well with some, on the fence. But I wonder if it's really going down well with most people.
Mm-hmm. Again, before we get your thoughts, I just want to remind the people at home they can give us a call on 061-291-3417. That's 291-3417. Of course, if you're calling from outside, you have to use the area code, which is 061, but the number is running down somewhere here. So please do share your thoughts with us if you get the opportunity. I would like to get your thoughts around the importance of funding, for these campaigns. Do you think that as somebody who supports a particular party, would you be interested to find out, well, I'm curious as to where this money is coming from? We had a very interesting conversation, not in studio, but somewhere else, and somebody raised a concern and said, but we declared a state of emergency as a country. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the campaign season, the money that is being splurged on all type of things in the name of winning a vote goes against what we are seeing or reading about in our newspapers. People are dying of malnutrition. People are losing their jobs, losing their livestock, their livelihood in essence. But yet we feel, when you look at some of these things that we see, one feels that are we really living in the same country? Because there's such a disparity. Tangeni, your thoughts?
Yes, before I answer your question, you said something interesting earlier. You said politics tends to be a dirty game. And when you said that, I thought of how all the political parties now, governing, opposition, and even the new ones, they all have to submit, let's say, a 50-page manifesto, but already, because they are all submitting a manifesto, parties that are not the governing party are already at a disadvantage, because in an ideal world, governing parties are not even supposed to submit manifestos. Your manifesto has been your last 5 years of being in power. And then additionally, with regards to the funding.
Sorry, Tangeni, just hold that thought. So apologies for derailing a train of thought. We understand we have a caller from Ondangwa. Very good evening to you, Leon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good evening. How are you, sir?
Leon, I can hardly hear you.
Okay, yeah. What I've realized is that the voters are not educated.
I'm sorry, Leon, we can hardly hear you. So perhaps maybe we'll ask the tech guys just to sort out that problem in the meantime, but we unfortunately can't make out what you're saying. Leon, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello?
No, I think the volume is very, very low. We can hardly hear you. Hopefully the tech guys will sort it out. Tangeni, please, let's just move on to the point you were trying to make.
Yes, the point where you asked the importance of funding in political manifestos. I think it's very important because it determines how you get to how and when you get to your electorate. How do you, as a party that is predominantly based in Valves or Keetmanshoop, how do you get to that 1 or 2 votes in Ondangwa? People that were actually going to vote for your policies and they believe in your policies. The electorate actually likes knowing who their leaders are. We can't vote for someone we don't know. You can't be in Ondangwa and your leader is in Keetmans. You've not seen them a day in your life. People in most rural areas don't have social media. So funding plays a crucial role in everything that is politics. Be it now, you alluded to how parties bring probably artists that these artists lure the youth in. You think as a party before you do a rally, what who's our target audience? Okay, 60% of the people are youth. Okay, what do the youth like? They like entertainment. Let's bring an artist from South Africa or what or what. If it wasn't the case, they would probably, if majority of the people were 60 and above, let's increase the, what do we call it? The pension of the people, because that's what they want. So with funding, you know what your voters want, and you are able to give them exactly what they want, whether it's for 2 or 3 days, because that will determine what the next 5 years of leadership under your party would look like.
All right. We're the same with Leon back on the line. Very good evening to you once again, Leon. Leon, can you hear me? Seems like the ICT gods are not looking down on us today. You spoke about the quality of the electorate, and there was an interesting debate going on about whether civic education should be introduced at the lower primary or even through secondary, so that by the time I graduate from grade 11 or 12, I understand, or at least I have a gist of what politics is all about and what I really want as a Namibian in a leader. Do you think in the long run, if that is implemented, we will see a change in the way people vote, in the way people hold people in positions of power accountable? Frederico, let's start off with you.
Yes, I mean, this is something that I'm firmly in favor of, is a stream of civic education that cuts through the curriculum from primary through to tertiary level. It is needed. People don't understand what democracy is. People think democracy is voting in this country. People don't understand that democracy, voting is just one of the things. In a democracy, you as a citizen in a democracy have responsibilities. And those responsibilities play out between elections. That's where you get to hold the government that you elected, the people you elected, accountable. And these things people don't seem to understand. People think if I vote, then that's my democratic duty done. So most people haven't read the constitution of this country. So, I mean, these are all things that speak to us as the quality of us as the electorate. Most people haven't read the manifestos and will not read the manifestos of any political party, not even the one they favor. And the parties know that. And if you look at how they treat the manifestos, where you have to go and ask at the party's office, the Secretary General for a copy. It's on a on a memory stick. It's not even accessible, because they know people aren't going to come and ask them for it. They don't have a website where they're going to post it. How many of our parties have websites where you can access? I think 3 at this point. Access their manifesto. So the way they're treating it tells you something about what they know and think about the electorates. They know they're not going to read it. So they have this 40-plus page PDF document, which they know nobody can download on their phones. It's not even phone friendly, where most people are. It's not phone friendly, so it's not accessible. Most people don't have the data to surf this thing on the internet. This really data intensive document. So you can see in the treatment of the manifesto, launch it and then put it there on the website. Say it's there, but who can access it?
And there was also an argument that was brought up when it came to manifesto, where people were saying, but we would also like to see manifestos and even the Constitution translated in our vernacular language.
Exactly.
People who don't understand or can't read English.
So PDM has made a bullet point version for it to be more accessible, that is easily shareable, via WhatsApp, for instance. I mean, that's one attempt, but still, I mean, where else can you view the complete document? So you see, in the treatment of the manifesto itself, you see what the parties think and believe of the electorates. They don't read. They aren't going to ask us questions about what's in this document. So if you go and ask for instance, a mobilizer in Walvis Bay, your party just launched the manifesto 2 weeks ago. Please give me the high points. The mobilizer of that party will not be able to tell you what's in that document. Pick any one of them. And that's, so the people in the party themselves haven't read their own manifesto. And I'm saying this from experience. I've asked people these things. And so you see, when I talk about quality, this is what I'm talking about. The politicians aren't reading their own manifesto. The grassroots mobilizers aren't reading the manifestos, and nobody that they're interacting with at grassroots level is asking them for a copy so that they can take a look at it and read it themselves and interrogate that mobilizer while you're standing here in front of me. Let me ask you about some of this. What you're going to do about some of these things. This says something about us. It says something about the politics, the quality of our politics. And this thing about producing this thing called a manifesto, which, I don't think most of our parties, as I said right at the top of the show, put much thought into. They produce it because that's what needs to happen when there's an election. I need to produce this thing, and I'm going to put it out there and announce it to, this is what I'm promising you, because that's what is expected of me.
University, I would like you to also just give us a glimpse into the political psyche of a university student. Do you sometimes have debates with fellow students, and then you ask yourself and say, how did this guy get into university with this type of reasoning? Yes. Or is it top shelf type of debate? And also, I'm just tying it into the civic education part. What is the quality of debate around politics amongst your peers?
Yes, like you alluded to, sometimes you will be in a debate with someone and you'll wonder, this guy in the same class, what's going on? But then there are select few minds where you are like, wow, today I have learned. Someone that can tell you something that your lecturer can't even tell you. So with regards to civic participation, civic education on campus, mostly it comes from students. The students will tell you why it's important to vote, why voting is your right. Yes, you have the right to water, you have the right to have a roof under, you have the right to live under a roof and all that. But then a student will tell you that you also have the right to know what the policies of your leaders are. And it's your responsibility to ensure that when these things are put out there, not only as a student, but as a Namibian citizen who cares about the well-being of not only our families, but all Namibian citizens, you go out there, you read, and when you read, you don't try to sway others into believing what you believe, but you provide them the material and they make up their minds, because the needs of Jonas and the needs of Frederico are not the needs of Tangeni. In an ideal world, hopefully we would all have the same needs, and political parties would ideally have it easier to come up with these manifestos, which are, like Frederico said, they do because they have to do, not because they want to do.
They believe it's part of what they have to do.
It's part of the to-do list.
Yeah. So with regards to civic education, it is very important. Probably, say for example, we are not forcing for it to be instilled in primary school, but at least high schools. People in high schools, the ones that are doing AS level, they will be 18. They will be in high school voting. So, yes, you teach that student about the national development plans, Vision 2030 in development studies, which is a good thing. But for those that don't have development studies, the ones that are studying commerce and science, how do they get this material? So we should engage our electorate, because without civic education, we are all running around like headless chickens. Like Frederico said, he said some political party mobilizers, if you ask them, okay, what is in the manifesto, they become quite defensive. It's like, you can't ask me that. What do you mean? I'm telling you the things and you're asking me. So yes, it's very important.
Frederico, I'd like for you to touch on your thoughts and perhaps what IPPR has been working on in terms of how political parties have been taking advantage of the digital space. And do you think that digital, or social media will replace traditional campaigning methods of yesteryear?
Well, I think not this time around, no. Look, I mean, WhatsApp is an important channel for all of us. I mean, all of us are on WhatsApp. And I think there's a lot of communication happening via WhatsApp groups and WhatsApp channels and so forth. And there's a lot of misinforming, of course, and disinforming happening via these channels as well, via WhatsApp groups and so forth. I mean, we sort of get hints of this. But I think because a lot of people are, as you said, a lot of people do not have smart devices, like smartphones and so on, out there in the rural areas and so forth. And really the connectivity isn't very good. So it's still, it's still your old style campaigning that will do the trick. Talking to people, meeting with people under the tree, the community, and discussing, telling them, your narrative, selling what you're trying to sell them as a political party. That's still, and that's why, you see the politicians over the last few weeks especially, they're meeting, they like taking these pictures with themselves, meeting with people under big trees, so this is happening, this is and they realize that you still need to be talking to people face to face in their spaces, in their communities to really try and convince them that you're the way they should go. So technology is more an add-on, It's I doubt, if you look at the numbers in terms of followership, the parties have very low numbers of followers on the major platforms. So it's not really a place where there's much happening, even though there's a lot of content. At the moment, there's a lot of content on a daily basis being posted and published on these party pages. It's not really the place that is a priority for them, and you can see why, because the followerships aren't picking up on a lot of these pages, and they know that. It's just sort of an add-on. It's trying out, which isn't to say that they couldn't become big campaign platforms for them. Yes, they can, and we've seen this in other parts of the continent and the world where online platforms have become large campaign platforms. So I think they're trying things, seeing if they work, but their main strategy is still to go and speak to people where people are.
All right. I've just been informed that we've run out of time, but again, I'd just like you get your final thoughts as we go forward. For any young person that's watching this, just quickly, just in 30 seconds, just share with us what you want to see come November 27th.
From the perspective of a young person studying political science in that manner, even before the elections, I want people to read manifestos. Don't go vote because it's your right. Yes, it's your right, but know that it's your responsibility to know who you are voting for. Don't go to make up numbers. Go there to make your voice heard, because if you are voting because of allegiance and not competence, you are part of the problem, unfortunately.
All right, Tangeni, Frederico, it's amazing how time can fly by so quickly, but that means that we had a very intelligent and interesting discussion. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And before we go, we have a quick African proverb which says, when the music changes, so does the dance. Now, this saying reminds us that when circumstances change, we must adjust to. In the context of elections, it means political parties need to change their strategies and promises to match the evolving needs and concerns of the people. Until next time, remember the tagline, Situation Critical, Minds Philosophical. Peace and love.